Mixed feelings as Ramaphosa, labeled worst president ever, enters second term. President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is set for his second term following his inauguration at the Union Buildings on Wednesday, has not received any favorable assessments from the various political analysts. On Monday, during an interview on Newsroom Africa, political analyst Sandile Swana was brutal in his analysis, saying Ramaphosa's first term was dismal and the worst since the 1960s. President Cyril Ramaphosa has performed worse than Zuma, and in my judgment, he has been the worst president in terms of the performance since 1960 at least. He needed to be removed from office based on that. So, the MK party and the EFF wanted him, and the DA put in a very nice sweetener of allowing him to stay and be his political bodyguard. I suppose that was very sweet to the ears of the ANC cadres. I think that we must be aware that the ANC in 1994 and the ANC that elected Thabo Mbeki to be president and allowed him to operate is very different from this ANC which has ended up in this coalition, and whatever it becomes after this, it will never represent that. Bear in mind that the DA, the bulk majority of the leadership and voters are National Party voters in any event, Swana said. At the start of his term, Ramaphosa made a lot of promises, including job creation, economic recovery, ending load shedding, unemployment and poverty, the rising cost of living, and crime and corruption. However, many of these promises were yet to materialize for most South Africans, with the exception of the recent reprieve on load shedding. Speaking to the Star on Tuesday, Professor Sipho Sepe echoed Swana's statements, saying Ramaphosa has nothing to show for the first term in the office except a 17% decline in voter share. Ramaphosa took the ANC from 62% in 2018 to 57% in the 2019 elections. In this year's election, he did even worse as the ANC only managed a 40% share of the votes. For us to be able to judge him fairly, we must judge him against the promises he made. This is the president who promised to deal with unemployment and promised that under his administration there will be economic growth and 1 million houses built in Alexandra. He promised to tackle corruption, and crime has spiraled out of control. So based on the promises he made, he has failed dismally on the promises he made, Sepe said. Beyond that, Sepe said the government of national unity, alongside with the DEA, will have dire consequences for the natives of this country, as only the policies of the DEA and white people will take precedence. Effectively, the ANC failed to deliver on its own transformative policies. Under Ramaphosa, there was a reversal of transformation, and even black business suffered. We have seen the replacements of black talent by Indians and white under him. So, you're talking about a phenomenal failure. Now with the DA, whose mandate is to protect white privilege, that means the DA-led GNU is not going to deliver for black people, he said. Professor Siphamandla Zonti said Ramaphosa's first tenure had made some level of progress, especially towards the end. His term was marked by some progress in certain areas such as the fight against crime and corruption, the mobilizing of international investment, stabilizing municipalities, the matric pass rate, and so forth. But there were no change where it matters, including fighting poverty, inequality, unemployment, which requires plus 5% economic growth. This was not realized as the economy has struggled to recover. I think the election results are also an opinion survey of the people on the performance of government as experienced by the people on the ground. The recent 10 years review of the National Development Plan also indicated that the country as a whole was not doing well across a number of indicators. Some of these had to do with global conditions of slow global economic recovery, said Sondi. Property experts praise GNU and think interest rates could go down. The property market in South Africa will benefit significantly from the successful formation of the government of national unity, according to property experts. The May 29th elections caused a lot of anxiety among both consumers and investors, according to Stephen Whitcomb, the managing director of Face Reality. Now that the tide has settled and the GNU has been broadly accepted, Whitcomb foresees that interest rates may even start to go down earlier than expected. Barry Everett, CEO of Chess Everett International, said the GNU is a courageous move that is already being rewarded by the financial markets. He noted that the value of the rand jumped up by 0.5% in one day and gained 3% in a week, compared to an average 0.4% decline among other emerging currencies. Low interest rates. Whitcomb argued that lower interest rates would undoubtedly boost the property market. These lower interest rates would make home ownership more affordable and easier for prospective buyers to qualify for a home loan, he explained. However, to get there, we need increased investor and consumer confidence in the future of the country and its economy, and the renewed confidence created by the GNU agreement was indicated by the 1.6 jump in the GSE Africa All-Share Index last week and a 3% increase in the value of the rand, Whitcomb said in the statement. The rand could also strengthen. Whitcomb also added that if this renewed confidence continues, the rand could strengthen against global currencies. If this continues now as we expect, the rand will strengthen further, the inflation rate will fall and the risk of imported inflation will decrease. All of this may well encourage the Reserve Bank to start cutting rates within the next few months and making life easier for millions of South African consumers, while hopefully lifting economic growth and stimulating job creation, he said. Consumer confidence. In addition, Everett said that the property industry will see a large amount of capital inflow over the next few months as a response to the announcement of the GNU, the re-election of the President Cyril Ramaphosa, and the political and social stability that investors crave. This inflow will further strengthen the rand, lower inflation, and make it possible for the Reserve Bank to start cutting interest rates, maybe even sooner than expected. And that will, of course, give the real estate market a huge boost by immediately making home ownership more accessible to prospective buyers, he said. Everett said that the GNU agreement will provide both renewed consumer confidence and increased affordability, both of which are key to the full recovery of growth and SA's property market. Charting a new course for SA with GNU statement of the intent. The ANC and DA are the first to pledge voluntary cooperation with the government of national unity through the signing on a statement of intent, which outlines certain agreements between signatories. The document, which has been signed by ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula and DA Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille, aims to foster trust between the electorate and the parties that will make up the GNU, including the IFP. The document states, the parties agree that when committees of parliament are constituted, the spirit of the Parliament of National Unity shall be implemented to enable parties that are part of the GNU to be accorded leadership positions in some committees. The document also lays out the need to deal with the poverty, spatial inequalities, food security, and improving basic services. Some of the key priorities of the statement include rapid, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, the promotion of fixed capital investment and industrialization, job creation, transformation, livelihood support, land reform, infrastructure development, structural reforms and transformational change, fiscal sustainability, and the sustainable use of our national resources and endowments. Building state capacity and creating a professional, merit-based, corruption-free, and developmental public service. Restructuring and improving state-owned entities to meet national development goals. Strengthening law enforcement agencies to address crime, corruption, and gender-based violence, as well as strengthening national security capabilities. Dr. Sam Weber, political analyst and lecturer at Nelson Mandela University, said the document is a broad framework that still needed to be fine-tuned. He said it is not clear yet how the parties will deal with the land reform and cadre deployment, among others. I believe that all these parties have deployment practices in one way or another. At the heart of this lies the bloated presidency that has been beefed up by the president in the name of efficiency. A debate on how ministries will be staffed also needed to be debated. The statement of interim does not say anything about roping in the parties that are not in the fold of the GNU, which is constituted by 60% of the parties in parliament. Ignoring the other 40% will be a recipe for disaster, said Weber. Dismantling the existing culture in organizational structures may derail the process of creating an effective and efficient governance GNU structure unless the president is prepared for a long fight with all the stakeholders, including unions and business. It is not going to be easy to adopt the business transformation agenda of economic growth, among others, because of union activism, Weber added. And that's it from Injibs Network. Stay tuned to our celebrity and gossip news.